All right, I'm going to go over some NBA news. I'll probably, hopefully, get to these as part of written pieces, but figured should or it would be fun to get these to talk about some of these things that have happened, mostly minor deals. Talked about LeBron going to Philadelphia already. More time to think about it. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna say that this team feels a little bit like that Lakers team was like the 2011 Lakers team where there's a bunch of guys that people know, but a lot of them are kind of not all of them, but a lot of them are kind of past their prime in different stages of their career, and they're going to be a popular, championship team, all that stuff, and there's going to be more problems. I'm not saying that I expect them to kind of fall apart like that team did, which was what was like Kobe, Dwight, Pau Gasol, Steve Nash. I mean, the fact that Steve Nash, like that team, didn't really accomplish that much. I don't think even in the regular season. But I'm just I'm starting to get that vibe just on account of it's like LeBron's still a good player on a great contract at like 4 million, but he's gonna be turned 42. So like, how good is he gonna be? Embiid, like I think the reality is like Embiid at this point, when healthy, isn't the same type of player that he was, right? And so there's kind of this, well, when Embiid's healthy, he's this team's going to be really good. They will be, but he's not that same like MVP caliber player when he is healthy. Maybe he can have games, short stretches, but it's not, oh, we have Embiid for 50 games this season, 40 games this season. We're getting 40 games, 50 games of MVP caliber production. It's if you have him for 40 or 50 games, maybe you get like 10 or 15 games where it's like that's the MVP Embiid. And then it's just, a good player, very good player, all-star player. Um, and so, Jalen Brown, I think, is probably at this point the most overrated player in the league by the general public. Like that whole analytics thing where like some guy was like he's the seventh best player on a team. Like that's probably almost certainly not true, but he's, in my opinion, probably when everyone's there, like he's the fourth option behind LeBron, Embiid, and Maxey. So how good is he really? And then VG Edge comes an interesting young player, but he's a young guard, and he kind of like he had a good season for a rookie guard for certain. I don't know how good he is going to be in year two in terms of like really helping this team at a high level because he's going to be asked to like cover up a lot of stuff. So look, Philly has the potential to be great. They probably will be pretty good at least. But there's this team just it feels like the names are bigger than the production at this point for a lot of these guys, and that's usually when teams kind of have these quote unquote disappointing seasons that you kind of should have seen a mile away. But anyways, Philadelphia has also signed Contavious Caldwell Pope, and this is kind of what I get back to like with like this like KCP was a very good player. Contavious Caldwell Pope has been quite poor the past two seasons. Basically, ever since he left the cozy confines of Nikola Jokic, he's been in pretty serious decline. So his final season in Denver in 2023-24, 10 points per game, 40% from three, 52% on twos, played solid defense. That was his age 30 season. Signs with Orlando. People thought that was a great free agent signing. 3-point shooting drops to 34.2%. His 2-point efficiency did go up to 58.9, but he took one fewer per game. Scoring went down to 8.7. And then Orlando just straight up salary dumped him into Memphis or used him as salary to get Desmond Bane. And I would not be surprised if one of the reasons why Desmond Bane cost so many picks is because Memphis took on the remainder of Contavious Caldwell Pope's contract. That probably was worth a first round pick. And then Memphis, he played 51 games, only started 14. He shot 41% from the field, 31.6 from 3-point range, and then 49.5% on twos as the lowest since his one season in Washington, 8.4 points per game. So yeah, like they've signed a guy who's get basically not unplayable, but like not really a guy that like maybe the coach trusts him in the playoffs because he's a vet, but I wouldn't trust that guy over the guy who's playing at that level the past two seasons in the playoffs as like an actual from production standpoint. And to bring in KCP and LeBron, they had to make some moves. Philadelphia did, so they traded Johnny Broome and a second round pick to the Clippers for my favorite player, cash considerations. Um, Broome, I believe, second round pick last season, missed most of the year, I believe, with injury. Was a great college player, but he's entering year two and he's already 24. Power forward, center, but like not really either. So he's definitely just a full time reserve. Now with Joel Embiid on this roster, like I wouldn't mind having a interesting young potentially offensive leaning center just to like have in the rotation because like I don't know, you're probably going to not have Embiid for half the season would be my guess. So he could have helped them minimally, and to get LeBron, it's worth it to move off of Broome. But also they waived Dalen Terry. Terry, also 24, hasn't been super impressive in his NBA career. That's why he's getting waived. Like, I don't know how much worse he is, honestly, at this point than Contavious Caldwell Pope. Like, I don't think he's better than him, but I also like he's 24. Like the chances of him getting better from what he has shown are much higher than KCP getting better. Now, Contavious Caldwell Pope will be in when he's on the court, will be, the third best offensive player at maximum, almost certainly, and usually probably the fourth or fifth. So, sure, his efficiency will tick up, but that's what Philadelphia has done to build this really crazy, interesting, top heavy roster now. Like like when you're signing Contavious Caldwell Pope, like he's once again he's a name. Like they keep bringing in names that people know, but like KCP is not quite good, and so they have some guys. But after you get past, I would say they're like they're actual good players. There's not a ton. There's not a ton to get excited about. Obviously, you have Embiid, Jalen Brown, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, all solid to good players in the NBA, likely. Then you have LeBron James, Dean Wade. Dean Wade's a good player, but also he's injury prone and 30, so you don't know. Good defensive player, doesn't shoot enough, but he'll be useful. They'll need his defense. Then Anthony Simons, who I think you know could be pretty solid for them. And then we're talking about like LeBaron Fillon Jr., like just guys with names you can't even pronounce. Dominic Barlow, Ariel Hook Porty on a 1-year deal as like your backup center, Jabari Walker, Justin Edwards, Adam Bona, like just a lot of guys that now KCP, but like a lot of guys that like you don't trust a ton. So they'll definitely with their core five be staggering those guys a bunch. But this is like when you build these teams with like name brand players, the back of your roster, the middle of your roster gets inevitably populated by players that are less than exciting. And that's the way the NBA works now, and it's kind of always worked that way. To be completely honest, like if you remember the Heat with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, like they were playing like random ass fucking dudes, like in important roles. So and you have three expensive guys, things get a little complicated. Okay, so moving on, the Nuggets, who have their own salary cap issues. I mean, they don't really have huge salary cap issues, but so the Oklahoma City Thunder presented Spencer Jones with an offer sheet for 2 years and I believe 11.75 million, which the Nuggets matched. And the Nuggets still have Peyton Watson, who's a restricted free agent, and we'll see if they bring him back. But currently, the Nuggets are going to be stupid expensive because without Watson, on the roster. They're already 2 million over the second apron. They're 14.7 million over the first apron. If Peyton Watson gets the contract that people kind of think he's going to get, which is around 20 million, maybe he won't because he's a restricted free agent and like I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't like maybe that's just not out there, but if he gets around, 20 plus million, they will be blown by the second apron and they will have to, if they want to get under it, they'll have to make some fucking moves, right? Like obviously Zeke Najee's 7 mil. Zeke Najee's making 7.4 million this season, and he has a player option for 7.4 million next year. I mean, talk about a deal that did not go well. But he'll be someone that they could move. Julian Strother would be someone they might consider moving. Grant, they kind of probably need a guard, so and he can kind of shoot. So I don't know if I'd love moving off of him. Christian Brown and Cameron Johnson have been rumored. So like, look, the Nuggets are just in a bunch. Personally, if I was them, I would just roll into the season super expensive and kind of just do a salary cap version of the Hunger Games. It's like who's playing well for us, who's got it. Christian Brown, can you get back to the form that got you that contract because you were not great last season? You know, fucking Cameron Johnson, like he's a good shooter. He had a rough start, kind of wasn't like really involved too much on offense, but like he had flashes where he looked good. If I'm the Nuggets, like I'm just okay with this team being super expensive because like Jokic hasn't extended and he's not going to extend this summer. So fucking cheaping out and the team being and him having to drag it to 50 wins is not a great way to get him to sign the extension. I don't give a fuck if he says he wants to be a Nugget for life. You know, the way people do it's like, well, it's up to the player. It's up to the organization too. Do they want to make Nikola Jokic a Nugget for life? Like they can do that. All it costs is money. So remember that. So yeah, Nuggets in a salary cap crunch, but that's the nature of paying the best player in the league market rate and fucking up and giving Jamal Murray 30% of the cap. Even though Murray was great last season, I just think, he's limited enough that I wouldn't have done that. Okay, a deal that is not that interesting, but I think people probably overrated it because it's a Celtics signing, and people love dick riding the Celtics. Great organization, but this one I just don't see. I don't see why. I saw some people talking about how great it was. So the Celtics signed Jordan Walsh to a 3-year, $15 million extension. Averages 5 million, starts a little under 5, gets a little above 5 due to raises over the life of it. And then but to do that, they also opted in his $2.4 million team option. And a lot of times when guys sign these like pretty low deals and they have those team options, the team will kind of decline it, and like that's why the player is basically willing to sacrifice um, maybe money in some sense because it's they get them more money up front, they get to free agency sooner. So this is functionally Walsh is now under contract for 4 years and 17.4 million, which is a totally good number. Like it's not going to kill you. I don't really see the upside with this player. Like he's a good defensive player, sort of. And when I say sort of, it's like he's a 6'6" power forward, small forward, and he's pretty brutal on offense, right? Like so last season he shot 38.4% from 3-point range, but on 1.8 attempts per game. If the shooting comes around to being pretty solid, like this will be a great deal. I just these dudes that basically only take corner threes, I feel like are way less valuable than people think. And I just don't really believe that he's anywhere close to a 38% 3-point shooter because like the prior years he was sub 30%, right? And the sample for his career is not that large. Um, so yeah, like this is a fine deal. It's a good deal. It's like these are the types of deals that like well-run teams do. I just don't see this having much upside outside of like, oh yeah, like we have like a seventh or eighth man on a reasonable deal because just like Walsh fucking can't do anything outside of on offense outside of you hope that he can be hit a league average percentage of threes when he's not being guarded, which like most teams will just kind of be okay with, especially if it's like if you're a 36% shooter from the corners, you're like costing the team not money, but you're costing them points. So yeah, but getting him to opting him in for that first year, so it's 2.4. Good work. Like this is a well done deal. I just like I saw some people like kind of hyping it up. I don't see like he's a defense first player that like might literally be so bad on offense that you can't play him in meaningful minutes in the playoffs. Like that guy's not worth more than the minimum, really. Okay, more interesting news. That is not that interesting. So Draymond Green has agreed to a 1-year contract to return to the Warriors for 27.7 million. This was after he declined a 1-year 27.6 million player option, I believe. So yeah, Draymond just declined that option, so the Warriors would have more space to pursue upgrades, and they missed out on LeBron, and the Warriors going forward are just going to be kind of a uninteresting team that happens to have Steph Curry. Like they're just not that good. Maybe Jimmy Butler comes back sometime and is like somehow relatively the same player. I doubt it. He'll be older, a year older, and he'll be coming off an ACL. They're just, they keeping Draymond around, fine. Like he's a good player still and very important to your defense. But yeah, so this is just it's not really. Some of my people might say it's like sad how it's ended there. I would just say this is how teams end that were good. I mean, they got what? How many championships out of it? 4. They got 3 when they were really good, and they got that one bullshit one against the Celtics where they kind of just, I mean, that wasn't a fraudulent title, but like that team wasn't that good. That wasn't a team that should have won a title. So they kind of like, they got lucky 1 year and won a title. Like it happens, kind of like the Knicks, right? Like just sometimes shit goes your way in the playoffs, and we try to talk about how like it was predestined. And it's like, nah, man. Like basketball is like it's the best of the American sports playoff systems in having the best team win, but it's not perfect because that's how playoffs work. The Cavaliers signed Mario Hezonja, maybe. I think it's Hezonja. Mario Hezonja, who was a former NBA player who flamed out and went to Europe and played for Real Madrid and was quite good there. I believe he's now 30 years old. And I remember when he was a prospect, I was like, oh, this guy's going to be really, really, really good. He's 6'8", kind of like a small forward shooting guard. I was just thinking at that size with his scoring ability, like he was going to be a real good player. And he never really had the juice to be the on ball guy that he was like, that his skill set was. And so it didn't really work for him in the NBA. He lasted from 2015-16 to 2019-20. Then he went back to Europe, and he's been quite good there. I believe playing for a Real Madrid team that was, I mean, that team apparently was like stacked. They had like a bunch of former NBA players, and 2 guys that I believe have come over back to the NBA after being out. So we'll kind of just see like, I think he's like on a minimum. We'll see like what he has to offer. At his size, if he like plays hard on defense and can hit some open shots, like he'll be a useful player. And it's always nice to have these like role players who have very recently not been role players, because like when the shit gets tough, like they're ready to go. Like late game, if they get the ball, like they're not like, oh no, like they're not gonna be scared. It's nice to have those guys, because there are a lot of these dudes in the NBA who, obviously full-time NBA players, they get drafted as like, one and done 19-year-olds, and they basically like right away are like, you're a role player, like this is what you do, and they just like they don't have the experience of like actually doing anything important with the bright lights. Not saying that he'll end up working out, but like it is nice to have guys who like you can trust that the moment probably won't be too big for them because like they've been in way bigger moments, or at least they've had more weight, the more team weight on them. Okay. And then to close this out, there are some notable free agents, which is going to be kind of like a guys listing dudes or dudes listing guys, whichever which way you want. Okay, so James Harden's obviously still a free agent out there, but he's going to go back to the Cavs, and I'm sure that they now that they didn't get LeBron, they'll talk with him, and maybe they're looking at other current free agents, and he'll be flexible with his salary to help them add more talent, which they desperately could use. Jonathan Kaminga is still a free agent. I'm sure he's trying to do some sign and trades. Kaminga is just one of these dudes where he's not very good, and the way he wants to play, no team wants him to play that way because he's not good enough at it for a team to like let him dominate the ball. And then all the like role player stuff, like defending hard, rebounding, hitting open shots, he's not quite good at. So he's just kind of one of these dudes who, like, realistically, like he should, if he wants to play the way he wants to play, just go fucking to Europe and be amazing, and then maybe come to the NBA after a few years of winning EuroLeague MVP. Like, because like he just doesn't have the sauce to do what he wants to do in the NBA. Let's see, Benedict Mathurin is currently a restricted free agent. We'll see what happens there. I assume he'll go back to the Clippers. Mathurin's kind of like Kaminga, where it's like he can kind of do some like cool stuff with the ball, but like he's not good enough at it for any team to like really want that because and it's like he's like, oh cool, like we can get like the worst on ball creation in the league. Like it's cool that he can do that, but he's just not quite good enough at the role player stuff. And like he's an interesting player, but yeah, like once again, there's a reason I think the Clippers, why the Pacers gave up on him pretty quickly, and why he's still a restricted free agent. Let's see, Bradley Beal's out there. He'll probably sign a minimum. He could be an interesting pickup for someone. Nick Richards, teams have been paying centers pretty well, and everyone's looking for backup centers. So, like Nick Richards is a like I don't know if I'm the fucking Sixers and I have to if I'm just willing to just waive some of these scrubs, like maybe Nick Richards, bring him on minimum, be like, hey, you're gonna get real minutes next to good players. Jalen Duren, still restricted free agent. We'll see how that goes, but whatever he wants, he shouldn't get. I mean, like he had a great season. Like I picked him for All NBA. He was great, but like he's not a good defender. I'm not saying he's bad, but like he's not a good defender at center. Can't space the floor. Can't like do too much. Like he can do a bit off the dribble. He's not the worst pass. Like he's got some interesting stuff to his game. It's just like he's not good at the things that like make centers super valuable, and he's not actually an on-ball guy. Like you like just feed down in the post like a Embiid or a Jokic. So it's kind of just like, dude, like you're not worth a max. Like those are the centers that get maxed out, right? Like maybe like go take the Walker Kessler contract. Like I think Kessler isn't as good as Duren, but like Kessler's like probably better at the center stuff, especially defensively. So like that one's going to go on till Duren kind of realizes that 4 years and 135 million is like actually a lot of money. Aaron Holiday is out there. That's fun. Good for him. Let's see. Anyone else of note? Russell Westbrook. I mean, we'll see if he keeps playing. Bruce Brown. I think Denver will try to bring him back, hopefully. Obviously, Peyton Watson already touched on that. Yeah, there's a bunch of fucking dudes. So if your team needs a player who has once played in the NBA before, there are guys out there. All right, that concludes this. I'll at some point I'll write up something on obviously Philadelphia's offseason, kind of like where I see them when I take a bit more time to look at the numbers and like continue to think about it, because like I think Dean Oliver like tweeted, it's like their starting five, their projected starting five had a combined usage of like 142 last season. The max usage is 100. So like, you know, I always feel like, there's only one ball kind of is like a bit overplayed, but this is an extreme situation of there's only one ball, and a lot of these guys are used to having it. They'll still probably be pretty good.